In today's episode, you get to be a fly on the wall and listen in to a real-life mini CliftonStrengths coaching session. You'll hear how my friend Bonnie and I had this conversation around her CliftonStrengths and how she uses them now to engage with others and how she can use them to help her find her true calling. When we were all done, Bonnie shared with me that it was an exciting and energizing conversation, and that her biggest takeaway was how it pulled out so many unique details about who she is and how she connects with others. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and maybe it'll inspire you, if you haven't yet, to take your CliftonStrengths assessment. Welcome to the Discovering Your Calling podcast. I'm your host, Sherry Miter. I'm here to help you unleash your strengths and get clarity on your calling. I believe when you find your purpose in life, fulfillment, joy, and success will follow. If you're ready, pop in those earbuds, hit that follow button, and join me on this journey toward discovering your calling. All right, so welcome to the podcast, Bonnie. I am so excited to have this conversation with you and to really dive into your CliftonStrengths. Thank you for taking the assessment, for reaching out, and for allowing us to do this conversation so others can hear what happened when they have a CliftonStrengths Start with Strengths session with me. And we're doing a little mini version, but it's going to be pretty powerful. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am quite excited to be here as I like learning about myself. I always have this mindset of improvement, and I'm like, how can I just improve just a little bit more? And so I always like self-assessments, and the CliftonStrengths just gave me an opportunity to just kind of I took it years and years ago, but of course, since then, it's been updated. People would ask me, oh, what are your strengths? I didn't even remember. And I have a feeling they probably changed since then anyway. So it's just a good opportunity to get some coaching around it also at the same time. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I hear that so many times. Oh, yeah, I think strengths fine. Wait, yeah, I think I took that, top 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I think this was my strength. And they come up with these weird words. It's like, what? How? Oh, yeah. Okay. That's this. And oh, yeah. But so many people never got coached around it. They never really understood what they mean, how they can be helpful to you.
Right.
And I was guilty of that myself. So, but let me know. So let's just, before we jump into your strengths, just a little bit of where are you at right now in your life and where do you want to be in your life?
Good question. So right now I am working somewhat full-time as a nurse educator. I've been a nurse for it'll be 20 years in July. I've done lots of things within nursing and have transitioned to this place wanting to grow more outside of my organization versus inside of my organization. I love nursing, and I actually don't plan to leave my organization anytime soon. Like if anybody sees my name and they're like, is she leaving? Nope. But there's a lot of growth that is happening for me outside of my organization, which then helps me to be able to impact healthcare and nursing on a day-to-day basis. So I work as a nurse educator specifically for new graduate nurses. So that's my way of being able to mentor because I love mentoring new nurses. And then I'm also in a president-elect's position for my state nurses association. All of these moves have really been God moves because none of them were my choice. I'm trained as a clinical nurse specialist, which is an advanced practice nurse. So we are kind of in that bucket of nurse practitioner, certified nurse midwife, nurse anesthetist, and then there's the clinical nurse specialist who works on healthcare quality and nursing practice. And so I thought that my trajectory was going that way. And then something happened. Really, I kind of hit a wall of burnout earlier this year and last year. Had some conversations with the Lord, and he was like, yeah, I got a different way for you to go. In the meantime, I was preparing to run for president-elect. Again, he tapped me on the shoulder when I was at our convention on last year. I'd already been on the board of directors for about 4 years, and I was preparing to just kind of hang back for a year or two and see where I was going from there. And I ended up running and won. And just how things have unfolded in my life have, one, been a good place. So sometimes people will say, oh, well, I'm in a direction that these are things that I didn't choose. And I'm not really quite sure I still don't know what he's doing, but I'm walking with it. But I'm in a pretty good place where I know that where I am in my organization, I'm good, but I'm seeing other things that I want to grow into, even as I'm walking through this president-elect and then going into presidency. I am how would I say this? I am a mom of older age. So I'm 45 with a 3-year-old. And so I'm enjoying life with him. I'm enjoying life with my husband. And then building a business on the side. So that's pretty much kind of where I am. At this point, I'm very ambitious, but all I can say, like when people ask me, okay, what do you want? I just want to make impact. I'm starting to see some lanes where I want to do that, but I can't say, let me take that back. I can possibly say what I want to do. I just don't know if that's the direction I'm actually supposed to go. So I could say what would be nice, but that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that. And I'm kind of smiling here because, I spend time prepping for these calls and reading through, each person's strengths and the details on it. And I almost look at these, I call it a debrief session, but really it's almost like a palm reading session in a weird way. It's just like, I feel like I get to almost step inside people's souls. And what I'm hearing you say is like, oh, yeah, I could see why she said, yeah. So it's so fun for me to be able to help connect the dots and based on your CliftonStrengths. And I have these, as a coach, we get these insight cards. And one of the things I do when I'm prepping is I just pull these out and they're a really, really brief overview of each of the CliftonStrengths themes. And your themes, your top 5 themes are relator, belief, connectedness, learner, individualization. We're going to dive deeper into those in a minute, but I just do a high level look at who is Bonnie Meadows according to her strengths, according to her talents. Really, it's really your talents because the goal is to turn them into your strengths. Some of them may already be your strengths. Some may be there, but they need to be worked on a little bit. I always say it's like a muscle. We have biceps inside of us. Some people have invested time and effort building that biceps, and it's a strength. Others of us need to work on it, but it's there, And when I do the high level, this is who I see as Bonnie Meadows. And I want I want you to just take this in, even close your eyes, Bonnie, and take it in and let me know how this description of you, this high level description resonates. So I see you as somebody strong in faith, sees humanity as beautiful and full of possibilities. You're someone who loves to connect with others on a much deeper level and enjoys learning how to make the world a better place. How does that all resonate with you?
Well, I guess that's spot on. Based on what I just said, that's pretty spot on.
and without hearing what you said, that's why I was kind of smiling. It's like, oh, I think I nailed that. And I didn't. CliftonStrengths nailed it. CliftonStrengths nailed it.
Yeah.
So that's really the high level. So I think the fact that you are so faith driven shows through because your belief is there. And it's kind of like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's, again, your talent themes, if you really believe them like I do, is they are your talent DNA. They're inside of you. I like to think of it as when God designed us, he put these inside of us. And they show up at different times in our lives and they develop in different ways. And sometimes they don't develop. Sometimes for some people, they're actually smushed. And it's not until we're way into adulthood that they get blossomed.
Yeah.
But like your belief, you can hear that shining through, and belief doesn't always come from a faith centered necessarily with God. For most people, it does. Not always, but for somebody like you, it's like, yeah, belief is totally tied to following God's plan,
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too off track here because I can go in a different direction. But what I would love to do is I'm going to do a screen share, because the other thing I do when I'm prepping is I go through your, that was the high level based on what each of those themes means for everybody. Now I look at like, what does Bonnie Meadows themes look like?
Okay.
And this is where I want to do a screen share for us. And if this makes it onto YouTube, people can follow along here. So Bonnie did the top 5. And can you see that, Bonnie? Can you see?
Yep.
Okay. So what I love is Gallup. This is new. So they've always done very customized reports for the full 34. They just started doing these customized reports for top 5. So they've always had a top 5 report, but this part is new. This beautiful report. Yes.
Oh.
And this is what's so cool. So when you're looking at your report, so we're looking at relator first. And what is relator? This is, the Gallup definition of it, that anybody with relator has the same description there. But what I would really love to hone in on with our, limited time is why your relator is unique. So all of this that's already highlighted in blue, not my highlights, but the blue part, that is your relator definition based on how your other themes show up in your assessment.
Okay.
So you could take somebody else's assessment and read relator. This part is not going to look like yours.
Okay.
So this is where I love to spend the bulk of the time initially with like my coaching clients, because this really will hone in on you, and it's taking in and it's not even just your top 5. Like you can start to pick pieces in here. Like you'll see as my notes, it's like, ooh, she must have this theme in there too. It's probably in 6 through 10, because you can hear other themes showing up.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that jumped out at me, and I recommend if you haven't done this yet, is to take the reports, print them out, and go through and highlight what jumps out for you.
Okay.
And it could be that maybe it's things that, I used to do that a lot and I haven't in a while. Let me get back to that. That's kind of hone that muscle, Or it could be like, well, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. Or maybe it just leaves you with questions, or maybe it just reminds you, it's like, oh yeah, this is why I am so good at what I do. Or this is why this energizes me.
Yeah.
Or this is why I'm going to be such a great president, So, you start to see those things. So highlight, circle, make note. But some of the things for relator that really jumped out for me that I thought were unique to you is, when it says you naturally gravitate to tasks where facts, events, processes, or ideas are methodically outlined. And I put nursing question marks. I knew you come from a nursing. So when you read that, like, how do you see that? Oh yeah, that's definitely how I naturally gravitate.
I actually was just having a conversation with a friend of mine earlier, and we were just talking about work in general. And, for both of us, we were actually talking about micromanagers and like structure of things. And so I told her, I said, in my work as a nurse educator, yes, I like structure, but I also like to autonomously be able to think through my processes and to be able to create and develop things. But when I'm in the clinical setting, I need all the structure I can get, which is why I was a cardiac surgery critical care nurse, because I absolutely loved and craved the structure. Because once I understood the structure, and I understood the norms, then when things deviated, I could easily critically think through, what do I need to do next quickly? Which is why, that's probably I gravitate to, because that's where I'm going to gravitate towards first. My foundation is, what are the facts? What are the processes? Like, what is the norm? And then outside of that, what is the abnormal? And abnormal, I can work with that, but I need to know what is the foundation and what is the baseline first.
We'll be back after a quick break.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. Hey, my friend, are you ready to take your personal and professional life to the next level? Do you want to unlock your full potential and understand how to leverage your unique strengths? Imagine having a personalized roadmap to success tailored just for you. That's exactly what you get with a Start with Strengths debrief session. In just 90 minutes, we dive into your CliftonStrengths report, breaking down your top talents and translating them into actionable insights. During our time together, you'll discover how to interpret your CliftonStrengths results with clarity and confidence, use your strengths as a compass rose to navigate your life and your career, how to apply your strengths in real-life situations, whether it's at work, in your relationships, or on your personal growth journey, and create strategies that align with your natural talents. My clients often tell me that these sessions are a game changer. They leave feeling empowered, motivated, and ready to tackle their challenges with a newfound sense of purpose. Whether you're aiming to succeed as an entrepreneur, discover your true calling, or find fulfillment in your current career, understanding your strengths is key and should be your first or next best step. If you're ready, visit my website at www.sherrymiterco.com/services or click the link in the show notes to schedule your session now. Let's unlock your greatness together. And remember, your strengths are your greatest assets, my friend. So let's discover them, understand them, and use them as your compass to navigate the journey of work and life. Your fulfillment, purpose, success, freedom, and joy all start with strengths. Okay, my friends, let's get back to today's episode.
And it's so interesting to me because relator, the definition of relator, as Gallup describes it, is it's how you build relationships. It's about relationship building. And relators love to just go deeper with a smaller group of people, basically.
Yeah.
They may come off as sometimes closed. They may, and I have relator like at number 7 for me. So I think sometimes people may think you're either shy or could be negative, like aloof, or, there's different ways.
Yeah.
But it's just that we're not selective in a bad way. It's just like, I got enough friends. I don't need to make another friend, but I want to know about you. If I get in a conversation, I don't want superficial. I want to go deep. Like, tell me something deep. Tell me something unique about you.
Sharon, that's spot on.
Okay.
Because I have said that before. Like, I got plenty of friends. I've got plenty of friends. I have friends from, I have my best friend. We've been friends since 9th grade. And so I have friends from church. So I'm like, I'm good on friends, but I still like engaging with people. I still like knowing people. But usually my engagement with people is, how can I serve you? Not what can I get from you? But in this moment, while we are here together, what can I do to help you? What can I do to make your day better? What can I do? Now that also turns around to, if it starts like, if people start pulling on me too much, then I pull back, and I'm like, no. I didn't come here for all of that. I only have like a piece of me to give.
It totally makes sense. And that explains why, because your relator, again, as I'm reading the customized description, it's like, well, that's interesting because it's not necessarily about the people relationships. It's made that, okay, maybe once this is set, then I can open up the doors to get to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is very interesting.
Some of the other things I highlighted in Relator was just by nature, you thrive in settings where you can accomplish things. And that shows up a lot in the themes. But as long as you can stick to your preferred plan of action, I think we just talked about this, you usually enjoy handling the details and deadlines related to jobs, chores, projects, hobbies, assignments, or errands. And the questions that came up for me that I wanted to ask you was like, how do you see that show up in your life, whether at work or at home? And then piggybacking on that, thinking about that, like what environments do you realize like you need in order to thrive? And maybe you can think back of a situation where you didn't have it and it was a frustrating environment, or an environment that you're like, oh yeah, when all these things are met, that's where I'm happiest. That's when I do my best work.
I could probably think of, I would say probably my job life within the last year. So I came into this nurse educator position after working in a clinical setting. And the clinical setting, depending on the manager, was very autonomous. And as my work as when I was a clinical nurse specialist, it's give her the project and then let her work through it with the team. And so when I encounter micromanagers who want to tell me how to work the project, I have an issue with that. That's where this comes in.
Yeah, you could.
Because just give me just give me the deadline, and the details. I will work it out from there. But don't tell me how to actually do it. I'm open for suggestions, all of that. Tell me what your goal is. I want to know what your goal is. I want to know what's my deadline. And then I'll take care of everything else. And then I just need your support whenever I have questions, whenever I run up against something. I'm not coming to you for just something. And so in my current job, that's how we operate. I have my own deadlines. I work my own projects. They tell me what is it that I need to have done, and then I work from there. And so it's a much better environment for me to be able to thrive. And again, like I said earlier, I have ambitions and things that I want to do outside of work they all relate to work, but I like to be able to have that room to be able to do those things.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And
yeah.
One of the things you said about, to thrive, I mean, that's the whole goal. That is the whole goal. And that's why knowing what your strengths and talent themes are and knowing these details about yourself, that's why you can say, oh, yes, this is why I am thriving in this setting right now. Or this is why this isn't working for me. And the other thing, too, is when we can work in our talents and our strengths, it energizes.
Yeah.
And when we're energized in our careers, we have more energy left at the end of the day to pursue our hobbies, to pursue
absolutely
things, to give to our family.
Yep.
So it's so beneficial to make sure that you are in a thriving environment.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we already kind of just talked about this with your, last thing on Relator is your enduring friendships have survived because they're built on loyalty and trust over time. And for you, these traits are essential. And you already mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your Relator,
Okay.
Quick little overview of the Relator. The other thing I love on this report is it gives you a little, application of how to really continue to work on investing in your relationships, investing in Relator so that they do become your strengths. And, in here, it just really is important to create that lifestyle that allows you to spend time with your friends, your close friends, and space to work with on what you want in the future too.
Yeah. Love it.
Any questions or anything around Relator?
Not that I can think of. Yeah, not that I can think of. It just, I don't know. I've moved. I don't think that I thought that Relator was going to be my number one, but I know that, like I do, that this was spot on, that hands down.
And again, sometimes it's how it's showing up. That's why I think that really diving into how it's unique to you, because then that makes it, because sometimes you can read the Gallup description and think, no, I don't really see that. But then when you dive in, it's like, oh yeah, that's like,
yeah, it's
how it plays with the other talents.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into this part today, but I just want to point this out that it's pretty cool. Again, this is something new to this report is how that they put in is how that theme blends. And I love that word blends with your other top 5 themes. So that's something for you to go back and look at. It's like, oh yeah, now I see my Relator and belief working together, my Relator and learner working together, and how they complement or work together. Again, I like their word blends. So let's go to belief. And when you were describing who you are when we first opened, I mean, again, you could hear your belief really coming through, Bonnie. In Gallup's brief description, I'll just share a little nugget is that, people with strong belief talents have enduring principles that they live by. These values vary from one person to another, but they're powerful beliefs that are deeply held, and that like that is the core of your being, or your core beliefs are so strong, and that's like is your guiding light, whatever that belief is for you. But when we look at your unique belief based on, again, your other talent themes, some of the things that I had highlighted was, the first thing is you identify what you can do as a person to make life better for others. Your values are expressed through your words and deeds. Your sense of mission, whatever it happens to be, fills your life with meaning and purpose. What would you say your mission is, Bonnie?
It depends on. So my ultimate mission is to please God. But that's really grand. Like we could do that every day. We could do that in big things and small things. But I don't want it to be said that I didn't do what he asked me to do. So I do not want it to be said no. Yeah, I asked you to do this and you didn't. And plus it's just not a good place to be. Like I feel the tension in that. And so that's my ultimate mission. Now, when it comes to nursing, I have such a mission and a passion for improving the nursing profession and increasing the value of the nurse. I feel like, and I've been a nurse in the South, and so I know nurses in other states. They have a different swagger about them, I would say. You know, when I speak to some of the nurses who are more experienced than I, who've been in nursing for about 30 to 40 years, they talk about how when the doctor walked in the room, they got up out of their seat so the doctor could sit down. And so we've evolved from that, but we have more power than we operate in. And I don't say that we need to tear people down, but I think that we need to stop asking for favors and get into action ourselves. And so I want to be able to empower nurses to get into action, to get in the flow, to not be passive. There are some of us who will be passive, and that is the part of our profession. And there's no digs on that because they are needed in the profession also. Their priorities are somewhere else, but they still love to be in that setting when they are able to be in that setting. And so they're present when they're there. But it is my nursing, but it is my passion to increase the value and the presence of nursing, and just to help us to empower ourselves to do better, to be better, because it then just helps our patients. Our patients, as you and I, we're all patients. We fare better especially when we are the largest part of the healthcare profession. When it comes to my son, my mission is to help him to be who God has called him to be, whatever I can do. So I don't want to stand in the way of that, but whatever it is that I need to know in order to help him, me and my husband and I, to help him to be wherever God wants him to be, that is my mission. My mission with my marriage is that I want our marriage to be a blessing to others, which means that we have to pour into ourselves and we have to pour into into our own marriage. And then outside of that, my mission is just to serve.
You've thought about this before.
I'm a thinker.
And it's funny because one of the things I highlighted under here was instinctively, you think before you act.
All the time. And when I don't have time, I'm like resistant. I'm like, yeah.
Meaning if you don't have time to think.
If I don't have time to think and I've not already like thought of a solution or had a solution, I get very resistant until I can come up with a solution. And it doesn't have to be like all the way, but I have to have somewhat of an understanding before I act. Yeah.
And that's a really, again, important thing to know about yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you, especially even in nursing, I'm sure did you ever work as an ER nurse?
Oh, no.
Okay. Because I could see that probably would not be the right place for you then.
No, but when you're working in cardiac surgery, critical care, like I've had patients where they're doing fine. And the next thing you know, like I was literally bathing a patient and the monitor started going off. She closed her eyes. I immediately dropped the bed, got on her chest, started doing CPR. But I was experienced at that point in time to where I knew what the process was. Like if somebody's going down, you jump on their chest, you start CPR. So it's not that I can't think in emergency situations, but I'd been through enough situations to where I knew my resources. I knew the sequence of what I needed to do in an emergency situation.
Because you had thought about it in the past enough.
Right.
Yeah. My husband, he's a retired firefighter. So we've talked about that before, of just why basically SOPs are so important, because
Yes.
you can go in just doing because you've been trained so much on those.
Yes.
In those for certain, situations. So yeah. So one of the other things I had highlighted under belief here was that you were willing to work alongside possibility thinkers who dedicate themselves to humanitarian or philanthropic, I can never say that word, causes like them. You imagine a world without refugees, war, hunger, incurable diseases, and weapons of mass destruction. Now that's pretty deep. But I think
that is
what you said, though, it may not be about war and hunger and diseases and weapons of mass destruction, but you summarized your mission really in the same vein, in your own words, of what you feel like your mission is around the nurses and the calling for them and how they show up.
Yeah. And I think about this, like, I feel like I feel like I've grown into this as I've become an entrepreneur, as I've been in the entrepreneurial space, because the entrepreneurial space allows you to think of the possibilities. There's no limits. You could do whatever you want to do. It just has to work, but you keep working on it. Sherry, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I would be in high school and there would be like the future entrepreneurs of America and this. I'm like, why would you want to work for yourself? Now, again, I don't want to work for myself. Like my entrepreneurship is more so about the mission of helping nurses build their careers. But I also see the fact that it is a opportunity for possibilities and all of the possibilities of the things that you can do. So I no longer have a ceiling for what I can do at work, because there's always going to be a ceiling and a mission. The mission is the patient's, but it's still guided by somebody else. I'm good with that, and I will work that mission, but I also am able to do what I want to do outside of that, and it's that humanitarian, philanthropic, that growth in professional nursing organizations that's not really about the money. It's about what impact are you making in the profession and on our patients? And I realize that I'm really only here for the period of time that I have to do the work, but hopefully it just moves the needle just one bit further so we can get just a little bit further. That's it.
I love that. And I hope, and again, this is one of the things I love about with the CliftonStrengths is a lot of times you may be aware of your talents and strengths that are showing up, but this can just be great affirmation that you're on the right path.
That's true. That's very true.
And when I look at your belief and hear what you're saying, I hope you are receiving that like, yes, you are on the right path.
And it's always good to know.
And even down, just the last little thing on belief here that I had highlighted, and you mentioned this with your son, that you want to leave future generations a much better world than the one you inherited. And not to say that, I mean, away the different world, but also just your passion for making sure, your son, what things going to look like for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to be optimistic about that.
Yeah, right.
Because you have to be, because you could be doom and gloom. The world is going to look different, but how can we work so that he's well equipped for whatever happens? Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that really jumped out at you with regards to belief and your mission when you see this?
You feel impelled to do whatever you can as a solo performer, driven by your talents. That stood out to me, because I'm like, if nobody goes, I'm there. If I got to go by myself, somebody will join me. But somebody's got to step out there and do it. Yeah.
Beautiful. So this I wrote in big, bold letters here. So let's go back and see what I was thinking. This is a big clue to finding your calling is what I jotted down here.
Yes, it is.
Around belief, it says, think about your best day to better understand what you like the most about what you do daily. How did your values contribute to the satisfaction you felt that day? What can you do to have more days like your best day? So when you think about that, what does one of your best days look like? What did it look like?
Sure. I will say I have a lot of great days. That's a good question. I don't really know what a best day could be me laying on the couch, or a best day could be laying on the beach. In my mission, my best day is connecting people. That's what my best day looks like, when I've been able to connect somebody with someone else, or when I've been able to help somebody have that little light bulb of just changing their thought process just a little bit, helping them to get just a different perspective on. So within that work, within nursing and things like that, I think that's why I like coaching people, especially for their careers, because I feel like we, as nurses, we don't see the possibilities. And there are lots of possibilities out there. But that's usually my best day. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, this is just a great assignment for you, Bonnie, or, somebody listening. This gives a really big clue to what your true calling is. And that is, think about, again, a day at work. And it could be your current job. It could be something you did in the past. One of those days that you just like, oh my gosh, this was such a powerful day. This was such a fun day. And you're energized. You might be tired.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between exhaustion because you're frustrated and exhaustion because you just put it all out there and in a good way. And what are the details about that made it such a powerful day? Like, what was it you were doing? And you just mentioned connecting people. Like, that's great. Look at those things. Like, what was it? Because the more you can really define in detail the things that energize you.
Yeah.
On those really good days, then the goal is then to figure out a way to keep repeating it. So you have more good days.
Absolutely.
But sometimes we just go about our days and we come home and it's like, oh, no, it was a really great day. But we don't give it thought to what made it a great day.
No, you are right. I remember when I went to, and I'd been going to our State Nurses Association convention for a couple of years, and I'd been getting involved. And there was a point where there was one year when I went and I came back and I was like, that was hands down the best. That was when I started to love networking, because I understood, like, my thought process in networking just shifted, because I'd gotten to know so many people. I might have been like maybe 3 or 4 years into the organization, but I'd gotten to know people. I now go to the convention to see the people that I saw the last time I went. But I was doing true networking, but it wasn't networking, it was connecting. And so every time I'm like trying to create that same scenario, and every year it's the same thing of, like, I barely even go to get the education. I go to network and talk to people and connect with them. But that's what helped me to lean more into nursing and to see the change that could be made. So you're right. You are exactly right. And it was exhausting by the time I was done, but it was a good exhaustion.
And it's right, because you've used it a couple of times now. Our next talent theme, we'll just move right into that, is connectedness. So
there we go.
And it's even, it's funny because we do tend to speak in our talent themes. We will use words like connectedness or belief or strategic thinking or problem solving. It's funny how we speak our own language. And connectedness is like finding the connections between people, between things, between thoughts. It could be a lot of different things. People with high connectedness don't believe in coincidences. They know that all things happen for a reason. They give others comfort that there is purpose behind everyday existence. And again, faith can play a part in here. Their faith is strong. It sustains them and their close friends in the face of life's mysteries. So they see that all the parts are somehow connected.
Yeah.
Now, your connectedness, Bonnie, again, a couple of things that had jumped out at me when I was reviewing this was, your openness inspires others and frees them to communicate and collaborate more easily. And you've kind of started talking a little bit about this on your mission and how you work with other nurses. But where have you seen that? Like, do you see that happen when you're working with, well, either of the being in the Nurses Association or, at work in your career?
I have. When I was working as a clinical nurse specialist, usually, again, I'm 20 years in. So the majority of the nurses that I'm working with, especially in the critical care setting, they're in their 20s. And so, you could have intimidation about that. And you could wonder, how am I going to connect with them, this, that, and the other. And maybe about a month before I was preparing to leave, they said, "You're so accepting of people." And I was like, yeah, I tried to, I try to be open and give everybody an opportunity to just be who they are. You can't be me, and you can't meet I don't have any expectations of you, but for you to do what you're supposed to do. But that, I find that has opened others up. And especially, like, I've not been in an operational leadership position. I've always been in an influential leadership position, which to me, and I've said this before, but to me, I feel like that's harder to do because you're not signing anyone's checks, but you need them to do the work of the team. And so you have to be open together and help other people to collaborate together in order to move things forward.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Be an influential leader, meaning that you need people to follow you, but you're not, like you said, the title or the paycheck.
Yep.
It's like leading a volunteer army, right?
Yep.
Is much harder. But the cool thing about that, when you are in that position, if you do it well, is there's a lot of respect that doesn't have to be there. And that's
absolutely.
So other things in connectedness is that chances are good that you occasionally link together a variety of people who otherwise might not know each other. Perhaps you create a work climate where individuals begin to understand each other and cooperate. Where have you experienced that, or where has that shown up in anything you've done?
I'm trying to think, where have I done that, where I feel like, you occasionally link together a variety of people who might not know each other. To me, that's actually more so happened in the friendship setting. So I may have friends that I know from different parts and walks of life that I might bring together to go out to dinner or to do whatever the case may be. Now, I am strategically bringing them together. Like, I know who can come together and who can't.
Great.
I know who to invite and who not to invite.
Yeah.
But essentially, that's what I'm doing.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
The last thing here, I want to mention this one. So by nature, you intentionally get to know people individually in your quest to gain wisdom. Discovering the qualities that distinguish someone from everyone else is an essential aspect of your personal search for truth. What does that mean to you? Because that was deep for me. It was very deep. I was like, oh,
I feel like that comes out in my coaching. Okay. And that comes out very naturally in my coaching. And sometimes I get nervous about it because I'm like, well, what are they going to ask? Something that sticks out. And I'm thinking, well, no, that's not. Prime example. I was talking to, now, of course, this is like a best friend of mine, but she's a nurse. And she clearly just told me that she loved working in the clinical setting, but she was having a frustrated day. She had told me that like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before that. And then we were out to dinner and she was talking about how maybe I should just go and work remotely somewhere. I was like, you don't want to do that. And she was like, what do you mean? That's not what you said 3 weeks ago. That's not what you want to do. And she's like, you're right. So it's just, I listen intently to what people say, because sometimes what they say is not really what they want to do. Or I start to dig into, well, what have you done in the past? Or what brings you joy? Or those are the things that I try to pull out when they're talking. And I'm like, that's not really what you want to do. What you really want to do is, or what you really should lean into is, and they're like, you think so? Yep, you do. So that I have a knack for just kind of, it's not a side. I don't know. It's just in my listening quality. I don't know. It's just the gift that God gave me to, I don't predict anyone's future. I just kind of pull it out and I'm just like, okay, that's just kind of what I understand about people, which is, I don't know, it's just the curiosity in me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And, by you listening, you really do distinguish that, what makes them unique.
Yeah.
And pulls out their own wisdom, it sounds like. You're able to do that.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of speed along here just for the sake of time. But I really want to jump into your last two is learner and individualization. And again, we've kind of been talking about them because they all fit together, It's like one does not live by itself.
Yeah.
So for learner, and if you're a listener on the podcast, you've heard me talk about learner because it's one of my top themes, and we just love to learn. It is what it says. Love to
yes.
learn.
Yes.
And so your learner body, one of the things that instinctively this I thought was really interesting. So you might prefer to enroll in a difficult class rather than register for the easiest one. Perhaps comparing how well you are doing in relation to others has meaning only when you earn the best grades in the hardest courses. To some extent, you crave recognition for your knowledge and winning spirit.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I just put my question was, is this true? Like, how does that, have you seen that in yourself?
I don't think so. To some extent, you crave recognition for your knowledge and winning spirit. Maybe my winning spirit. I don't know. I haven't seen that show up, or maybe I just haven't been looking for it. I will definitely enroll in the more difficult class. Like I am not getting ready to register for the easy one unless I have a harder load. Like if I'm registering for the easy class, it's because I've got 10 other things going on and my brain can't take it. So I just need the easy route. But otherwise, yeah, I'm going for what's the hardest. I'm the one and I just talked about this in my podcast. First of all, I have 2 master's degrees in nursing. So let's just start there.
There we go.
With the learner. And in my first master's degree in nursing, it was a nurse leadership master's degree, but we took classes in the MBA program. And one of my favorite classes was economics. Now I was struggling in there. It was a lot of writing in this economics class. It wasn't a lot of math. It was and that's when I really understood the true meaning of economics and just the cause and effect of things. And I see it everywhere. So yeah, I don't know about the last sentence, but everything else I would probably say, yeah. I don't do a whole lot of comparing though, but maybe I do. And I just don't know it.
Yeah. And I read that comparing, like it may be, so like when I was in network marketing, and to me, and I struggle with this now as a solopreneur because I loved a scoreboard. And it wasn't because I needed to beat you. Now, my husband would tell me I am competitive when we're playing board games. I do want to beat you if we're playing a board game. But when it comes to business, it's not necessarily that I want to beat you, but and even with podcasting, and I know you have a podcast as well. I like to know where I'm at. Just
yeah.
I know, where am I at? Am I doing okay, or should I be doing better? So it's more that comparing, just so you kind of know, how am I doing?
Right. Right.
Should I be doing better? Should I be doing? And so sometimes it's that comparing. It's not comparing like, well, she's way cuter than I am, or they're doing this, that it's not Instagram comparing. It's comparing just so I know, how am I doing?
Yeah.
What else do I need to learn so I can be better?
Right.
That kind of comparing.
Gotcha. Okay. Right.
How I see that in there. The other thing with the learner that, again, jumped out, because I have the privilege of seeing other people's learner's description. So I like to highlight things that I may not have ever seen before in one. And again, it's not good or bad. It's just different. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about it. Is that normally you accumulate, and again, it may just be one of these things. It doesn't have to be all of them, but facts, data, stories, examples, or background information from the people you meet. Determining what they want to accomplish in the coming weeks, months, or years generally satisfies your curiosity. I think you already talked about this in coaching. These insights also allow you to understand why individuals behave the way they do in different situations. So how does that part of your learner help you?
It helps me to understand what's your motivation. Because whatever your motivation is, that's what I'm going to tap into.
I love that.
to either serve you to meet your need, or not your every need, but whatever it is that I'm here to help you with, or to motivate you to do something that needs to be done. Yeah, that's usually how that applies to me.
That totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. Yeah, and this kind of fits right in there. It says you aim to understand the basic whys and hows of a situation, problem, or opportunity. People trust you to be cautious.
Very true. Very true.
And then the last is people, because of your strengths, you often join teams to acquire new skills and gain additional information.
Always. Like, I need to know more. Sometimes I have to slap myself on the hand and just be like, no, you don't need to know anymore. You have more than enough.
I know.
Just move forward.
Yeah, just take what you know and work
right.
it, Chris. I know.
You'll get clarity as you go. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things here, just to pause again and looking at all of what the talent things we've looked at so far, is as a coach, as a CliftonStrengths coach, definitely is evident that for you to thrive, the right environment for you is definitely time to ponder and not be rushed, time to gather facts or gain information and acquire knowledge that you might need before moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we'll just wrap up here with, and I'll send you this copy, Bonnie.
Yeah.
I've highlighted so you can go back and things that we haven't had time to jump into today.
Okay.
But individualization. And individualization is a great theme that just sees that each person is unique and they're intrigued by the uniqueness of each person. And one of the things I had highlighted under your individualization is you talk to observe or study individuals who produce nothing less than excellence to identify what inspires them. Unquestionably, you prefer to associate with those who share your passion for taking something good and making it better. And when I read that, it's like, I would bet some money on it that if you open up your full 34 report, maximizer is going to show up in your 6 through 10, because that was like maximizer description there to me.
Gotcha.
Maximizers like to take something that's already great and just make it better. Versus like there's developers and they like to start from scratch and just build from nothing. And you're shaking your head.
Only in certain situations, but I like to know who has done it before so I can work from there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can see why the role you're in is, a perfect role for you right now, and where you're going too, and where you're going.
Yeah.
The other, I saw empathy show up here too in this description for you, is that you might sense what particular people are thinking before they utter a word. And you kind of talked about that earlier when you were talking to your friend, or maybe they utter the words, you hear what they're really trying to say or what they're
absolutely
not saying. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That does show up a lot.
So again, I'm guessing empathy probably shows up in your 6 to 10. And then the last thing here was that perhaps you agree that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, that when everyone asks questions, offers solutions, describes situations, or raises issues, the group's collective intelligence may exceed that of any single person.
Amen. No one person has all the answers.
Yeah. And that's probably why I am assuming you love to work in a good team.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So again, I would add on your things that I need to thrive is, getting in brainstorming situations where you can brainstorm with. See it now. Yeah, mentorship. I did write down mentorship and coaching as, again, which you're already, you already do and you're moving towards too. Is how we become aware of others' unique needs. People will come to you for insights into other people's motivations and actions. But there's a quote, which I thought was really kind of fun. I don't remember now where it was.
I'm sorry, I keep looking at my phone. I actually have another podcast interview booked. Like, somebody called me earlier today and they were like, can you jump on this call at 4:00? I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So as we just close this up, the body too, one, I want to see, do you have any questions about any of the themes?
No, it was very much so spot on. Yeah.
What did you find helpful about diving into them a little deeper?
I found it helpful knowing that I found it interesting but helpful that knowing that I was more like the relator piece. That was definitely what and connector. It just kind of, as you said, like it helped me to realize I was on the right track.
Good. Yeah.
So,
if it's all right with you, I'm going to give you what I call self-work. I don't call it homework.
Okay.
He likes homework, but self-work, some things to work on. So one, Gallup has, and there's links right in your report, a lot of resources for you to plug into and learn, feed your learner, learn a little bit more about your talent themes. The other thing I would recommend is, if you haven't yet, download, I have it's called a 5 to Thrive guide and challenge. And what it does is it helps you kind of learn, again, based on your talent themes, how you thrive. What are your energy drainers? And they're like one sentence. So they make it very, very clear. So you can just really pick apart what's your superpowers, what might get in the way of your success, your barriers. We didn't get into that at all today. So it's really powerful of just quick little nuggets on each of your themes. Now that you have your top 5, you can go in and look at that. So, and I'll post that link. I'll send it to you, but I'll post it also in the show notes. But thank you, Bonnie, for, taking time to let me help you dive into your strengths and discover a little bit more about yourself today.
Thank you. I feel like I probably needed about 90 minutes for this. This was fun.
And that's what I normally do. We had a really brief session of this. So, yeah.
Thank you for spending this time with me. My hope is something you heard today inspires you to take action toward discovering your calling. I just have 2 favors to ask of you before you go. 1, if you found value and enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you might hear your review read on a future episode. And 2, can you share this episode with 3 friends who will also enjoy it as much as you did? By doing these things, you will help us grow the podcast to make a bigger impact on the world. And until next week, remember, you've been created to live a life of fulfillment, freedom, purpose, success, and joy.